The Iguala mass kidnapping, a decade of lies. They just got down and started shooting to kill. On the night of September 26, 2014, in the city of Iguala, Mexico, 43 students were attacked, abducted by local police, and then erased from the world. They were never seen again. For more than a decade, their faces have become a haunting symbol, not just of a nation's grief, but of a government rotting from the inside out. This is the story of that night of terror, and the decade of calculated lies, brutal cover-ups, and the desperate search for a truth that powerful forces want to keep buried forever. Part 1. The Night of Terror. The story begins with a group of young men, students from the Ayotzinapa Rural Teachers College. This was no ordinary school. It was a place known for its fiery left-wing politics and a long, defiant tradition of social activism, a place the state had long viewed with suspicion. Its students, most from impoverished rural families, were being trained to teach in Mexico's most forgotten communities. On September 26, 2014, they were preparing for a fateful journey. Following a long-standing, if controversial, school tradition, they traveled to the city of Iguala to commandeer several buses. Their plan was to drive to Mexico City for the annual commemoration of the 1968 Tlatelolco massacre, another dark chapter where student protesters were slaughtered by the state. For them, this was a political ritual, but on this night, their path led them through Iguala, a city loyal to far darker powers. Around 9:30 p.m., as their buses cut through the city, the trap was sprung. Without warning, Iguala municipal police vehicles intercepted one of the buses and opened fire. Bullets shredded metal. Students dove for cover, their protest mission instantly devolving into a frantic struggle for life. This was no random act of violence. Over the next few hours, a coordinated wave of terror washed over the city. The students scattered, desperate to escape, only to be met at every turn by more police and more gunfire. Witnesses described a scene of pure chaos as police officers, working side by side with shadowy, unidentified gunmen, hunted the students down like animals. One cornered group tried to give a frantic interview to local reporters. As they spoke, another volley of shots erupted, executing 2 of them on the spot. By the end of the night, 6 people were dead, 3 students and 3 bystanders, and dozens more were wounded. But the true horror was just beginning. In the blood-soaked chaos, survivors watched as their classmates were rounded up by the police. They were beaten, brutalized, and hurled into patrol trucks before being driven into the swallowing darkness. 43 were taken. 43 students, whose only crime was the desire to attend a protest, systematically vanished at the hands of the authorities meant to protect them. As dawn broke over Iguala, the streets were a crime scene of shell casings and blood, but the 43 students were gone. Part 2. The cover-up. In the days that followed, while the parents of the 43 began their frantic search, the Mexican government raced to weave a fiction. The case had become an international scandal, and the world's eyes were fixed on Mexico. The government's official answer came in early 2015 from then Attorney General Jesus Murillo Karam, who unveiled what he cynically called the historical truth. According to this state-sanctioned story, the corrupt local police of Iguala had simply handed the 43 students to a drug cartel called the Guerreros Unidos. The cartel, supposedly mistaking the students for rival gang members, had killed them, hauled their bodies to a garbage dump in the nearby town of Cocula, and incinerated them in a colossal fire that burned for over 12 hours. They then, the story went, crushed the remains and scattered them in a river. With that grotesque tale, Murillo Karam declared the case closed. But the historical truth began to unravel almost immediately. The families of the 43 never believed the lie. They knew their sons were activists, not criminals. Their disbelief was soon vindicated by science. the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights formed an interdisciplinary group of independent experts, GIEI, to audit the state's investigation. Their discoveries were devastating. The GIEI's fire expert concluded it was scientifically impossible to cremate 43 bodies at the Kukula dump, as the government claimed. Such an act would have demanded tons of fuel and left a mountain of evidence, none of which was ever found. The government's entire narrative was not just flawed, it was physically impossible. If the historical truth was a lie, how was it built? The answer was monstrous: torture. Subsequent investigations proved that the key confessions propping up the official narrative were extracted through systematic brutality. Detainees were beaten, suffocated, and subjected to electric shocks, forced to recite the story the government needed them to tell. This wasn't a bungled investigation. It was a deliberate, meticulously crafted fabrication designed to put a swift end to a politically catastrophic crisis. And the rot went deeper than just local corruption. Evidence surfaced proving federal forces were watching the events unfold in real time. The GIEI found that the students were being monitored by state, federal, and military intelligence from the moment they left their campus. Soldiers from the 27th Infantry Battalion were on the ground in Iguala that night, and military intelligence was listening in. They knew, and they did nothing. A government truth commission would later brand the disappearances a state crime, confirming collusion at every level of power. The lie was collapsing, but the truth was being guarded by the full force of the state.
Part 3. The fight for justice. With the government's narrative exposed as a fraud, the families of the 43 were left adrift in a sea of agonizing uncertainty. Their private grief ignited into a powerful national movement. These were ordinary people, farmers, laborers, homemakers, forged into activists and investigators, becoming the moral conscience of Mexico. They led massive marches, their sons' portraits held high, their voices joined in a single, haunting chant. Vivos se los llevaron, vivos los queremos. Alive they took them, alive we want them back. For over a decade, their fight has been relentless. They have faced down presidents, pleaded their case before international bodies, and endured a government that offered them a poisonous cocktail of apathy, hollow promises, and outright hostility. The case has become a judicial theater of arrests and releases, of new prosecutors and unexplained resignations. High-ranking officials, including Jesus Murillo Karam, the architect of the historical truth, were arrested on charges of torture and obstructing justice. Arrest warrants were issued for military commanders, some of whom were detained only to be mysteriously released, feeding the family's conviction that a shield of impunity protects the guilty. The families and independent investigators have consistently pointed to one monolithic obstacle: the Mexican military. For years, they have demanded access to army archives from the night of the attack, convinced the military holds the final, damning secrets of what happened. But the armed forces have repeatedly claimed that crucial information does not exist, creating what the GIEI termed a pact of silence. In 2024, the families, betrayed by the lack of cooperation and the government's broken promises, suspended all dialogue with the Presidential Truth Commission. More than 10 years later, the case remains a festering open wound for Mexico. It has become the ultimate symbol of the country's horrific crisis of over 100,000 disappeared people and the systemic corruption that allows such atrocities to occur without consequence. To this day, the burned remains of only 3 of the 43 students have ever been identified. The fate of the other 40 remains a state-protected secret. The story of the Ayotzinapa 43 is not about a crime that was committed, but a crime that is still being committed, a conspiracy of silence designed to bury the truth. Sharing their story is an act of defiance. Subscribe for more investigations into the shadows where injustice festers. A decade of lies has passed, a decade of marches, of tears,
of questions that echo in a void of official silence. Not a single person has ever been convicted for the disappearance of the 43 students. The families, with over 10 years of pain carved into their faces, continue to march. They carry the same photographs, their sons' faces forever young, frozen in time. Their demand today is the same as it was on day one.
It is not a cry for revenge, but for something far more elemental: the truth. As Hilda Hernandez, mother of a missing student, declared, after 11 years, the demand remains the same: their whereabouts, the truth, however painful it may be, and justice. The Ayotzinapa 43 case is a grim testament to the depths of state corruption, but it is also a terrifying story about the resilience of those who fight for justice in the face of an omnipotent, malevolent force. Their struggle continues, and so does their chant, a ghostly echo haunting the halls of power, a promise that they will never, ever give up. Alive they took them. Alive we want them back.